Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we're here for the waning days of National Poetry Month, a poetry discussion every day on the channel here in the month of April. This is National Poetry Month, and on Sundays, we speak about Sylvia Plath. And we will have, at the conclusion of this month, another Sylvia Plath poem. We'll get there when we get there. Look, if you enjoy what I do here, consider hitting the like button because it tells YouTube to share this video with other poetry lovers, other literature lovers. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing that I talk about on this channel. Poetry, short stories, novel read-alongs, writing, all that sort of stuff. So consider hitting that subscribe button because this is what we're doing here. We have today a poem by Sylvia Plath known as Edge. Kind of an edgy poem. So the poem reads as such. The woman is perfected. Her dead body wears the smile of accomplishment. The illusion of a Greek necessity flows in the scrolls of her toga. Her bare feet seem to be saying, "We have come so far. It is over." Each dead child coiled a white serpent, one at each little pitcher of milk, now empty. She has folded them back into her body as petals of a rose close when the garden stiffens and odors bleed from the sweet deep throats of the night flower. The moon has nothing to be sad about, staring from her hood of bone. She is used to this sort of thing. Her blacks crackle and drag. One more time, because I think it's important. The woman is perfected. Her dead body wears the smile of accomplishment. The illusion of a Greek necessity flows in the scrolls of her toga. Her bare feet seem to be saying, "We have come so far. It is over." Each dead child coiled, a white serpent, one at each little pitcher of milk, now empty. She has folded them back into her body as petals of a rose close when the garden stiffens and odors bleed from the sweet, deep throats of the night flower. The moon has nothing to be sad about. Staring from her hood of bone, she is used to this sort of thing. Her blacks crackle and drag. This is what appears to be a double murder suicide, right? This is what appears to be a woman, a mother, taking her children with her. This is also what appears to have been Sylvia Plath's last poem. Her final poem, the last poem she ever wrote, seems to be. Maybe we are mistaken. Maybe we do not have that correct. Let's just, for the sake of discussion, assume that is correct. Let's say that's right. This was her final poem. I'm going to read you something. This comes to us from Wikipedia. If you search the term Jisei, Jisei, the death poem is a genre of poetry that developed in the literary traditions of East Asian cultures, most prominently in Japan, as well as certain periods of Chinese history and Joseon Korea. They tend to offer a reflection on death, both in general and concerning the imminent death of the author, that is often coupled with a meaningful observation on life. The practice of writing a death poem has its origins in Zen Buddhism. It is a concept of worldview derived from the Buddhist teaching of the three marks of existence, specifically that the material world is transient and impermanent. that attachment to it causes suffering, and ultimately, all reality is an emptiness or an absence of self nature. These poems became associated with the literate, spiritual, and ruling segments of society as they were customarily composed by a poet, warrior, or nobleman, or Buddhist monk. The writing of a poem at the time of one's death and reflecting on the nature of death in an impermanent, transitory world is unique to East Asian culture. It has close ties with Buddhism and particularly with mystical Zen Buddhism, Chan Buddhism, and Seon Buddhism. From its inception, Buddhism has stressed the importance of death because awareness of death is what prompted the Buddha to perceive the ultimate futility of worldly concerns and pleasures. A death poem exemplifies both the eternal loneliness that is found at the heart of Zen and the search for a new viewpoint, a new way of looking at life and things generally, or a version of enlightenment. According to comparative religion scholar Julia Ching, Japanese Buddhism, quote, is so closely associated with the memory of the dead and the ancestral cult that the family shrines dedicated to the ancestors and still occupying a place in honor in homes are popularly called the Butsudan, literally the Buddhist altars. It is it has been the custom in modern Japan to have Shinto weddings, but to turn to Buddhism in times of bereavement for funeral services. End quote. The writing of a death poem was limited to society's literate class, ruling class, samurai, and monks. It was introduced to Western audiences during World War II when Japanese soldiers, emboldened by their culture's samurai legacy, would write poems before suicidal missions or battles. This seems maybe pertinent. But what I really want to talk about, they tend to offer a reflection on death both in general and concerning the imminent death of the author that is coupled with a meaningful observation of life. Oftentimes, it is in notice of how we are always alone. I don't remember where that was. Eternal loneliness. There's also something about personal fault or something like that, I thought. Anyway, not 100% necessary to be word for word with what I'm talking about here, but that is the practice of the Jisai. Jisai is definitely, I think, worth observing here. I think I think there are moments in life when we very clearly see our own limitations, when we very clearly see the mortality of ourselves, not just in light of death, but in light of limitation. There are moments in life when we realize there are things we will never be, there are things we will never do, there are things we will never comprehend or grasp, try as we might, work as we might. That is not for us. That realm of being, whatever it is not for us. But the type of enlightenment that I'm concerned about with this poem is the type that wakes you up in the middle of the night. The type that wakes you up in the middle of the night with stark clarity, not just that you've wasted your life, but that you're going to continue wasting your life. You've been there, surely. You've had these little jolts where you wake up suddenly as if the fever has broken, the fever under which you have been living your life day by day, moment to moment. That fever, that fever of reality, the fever of consciousness has broken, and you see the years you've wasted. And you know, the coming years, they will be the same. And they will be the same because what else do you know? How else could you do things? How else could you possibly live? You don't know any better. What are you supposed to do? Suddenly start living your life as an astrophysicist? Suddenly wake up and decide that you're a UFC fighter? No, you're too old for those things. Those things don't happen now. You've wasted that opportunity if ever it was. But probably it never was. Probably it never was, right? So many things, probably you never, if you really think about it. Yeah, it's a free world. I'm here in the United States. It's a free country. But probably you never had a shot. Never had a chance. One, two, three things didn't go the right way early enough in your life, and so many things were suddenly out of grasp. Not for now, forever. That's just reality. It's just reality. But it is stark. Now, assume that's true. Pretend we've all been there. You've had that little jolt in the middle of the night, waking up, staring at the blackness in front of you, the darkness that you're lying inside, realizing you've wasted so much, you'll waste the rest. And imagine looking your children in their eyes for the rest of their lives, for the rest of your life, knowing you couldn't help them have a better life. Because regardless, maybe you did the dream. Maybe your dream was NBA player. Maybe your dream was college dean. Whatever the highest aspiration is. Best-selling author. Maybe you did that. All of those things happen because you have some other disposition. All of the most successful among us have some disposition. Kobe Bryant, NBA player, not particularly liked. Respected, not particularly liked. Ernest Hemingway, one of the greatest writers of all time, not really liked. Respected, not really liked. So, you don't accomplish your dreams, or you do accomplish your dreams. Neither of those things help you when trying to raise a child. One of the things that scares the daylights out of me is the prospect of fatherhood because I don't know how to do that. I'm a very limited person. I don't know how to do that. Imagine the unbearable weight in the conceit, the realization you'll never help your kids be a better person than you. That seems to be, to me, what this poem is about. Because in that moment, in that moment, if you realize there is nothing you can do for this child, you've wasted your life, you've wasted your potential, you've wasted everything that you thought you could be. And here are these little creatures so dependent upon you, and you can't help them. I mean, you can help them suffer through days in the same way that you have suffered through days. Sylvia Plath, a tortured individual. You can help them in that way. You can help them live more tortured days. But what would be the point? Would it be better to end that suffering like we see in this poem. I'm not trying to talk anyone into it, by the by. I'm just saying I think that's what we're looking at in this poem. There is so there are certain poems, there are certain stories behind which we find the emotion. One of my favorites for that is Bluebird by Charles Bukowski. There's a bluebird in my heart, but I'm too tough for him. He tries to get out, and I say, "What are you trying to do? Ruin the works?" And I drown him in cigarette smoke and liquor. But he's still in there. He's still in there chirping around. That's a very emotional poem to me. We know what it is that Charles Bukowski is expressing there. It's a type of loneliness. It is a recognition of stark otherness. But this poem, woof. This poem, so one of the things that eats me inside is the possibility that someone who is limited recognizes that limitation in themselves and understands that I think you understand what I'm saying. Someone who has irrefutable and irreconcilable challenges in life, whatever that might be, right? Recognizing that and setting that. So a person can't do X, then sets X as the only way to be successful in life. I'll never be successful in life. I'll never have anything worth having. I'll never be a person worth being. That sort of thing, that sort of pain. Recognition of less than. What Martin Luther King Jr. called nobodiness. Someone recognizing their own nobody. We're all nobody. We all have nobodiness. But to accept that nobodiness as what encompasses your being, as what it is to be you, that stark nobodiness. Someone setting that definition on themselves, that's a deep well of pain. That seems to be, to me, what this poem is. I don't know that there's any other conversation in there for me. I think that's just it. I think that's where I have to leave this poem. That is this poetry discussion. I will be back tomorrow. Tomorrow is Monday with William Blake. So if you like William Blake, or even if you don't, spend some time with your old buddy Adrian anyhow. There are many poetry discussions left in this month. After this month, there is poetry to be found on this channel every Monday, because that's what we do on Mondays here. So, again, if you hit that like button, it really does help me out here on this channel. It tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel. Poetry, short stories, novels, writing, those sorts of things. And I hope to have you back